Your next reading is Understanding Business Cycle. The first LOS describe the business cycle and its phases. So a business cycle basically is fluctuation of GDP over time. So basically alternatively there are periods of high growth and negative growth. So this alternating period of expansion and recession is what you call the business cycle. This is expansion, increase in economic output and other economic factors, whereas this is recession, decrease in economic output and other economic factors. So this is the idea behind the business cycle. Industrial production, personal income, employment, wages, profit, sales, and all the factors are influenced by the business cycle. So generally there is no fixed time frame. Well, like in Pakistan, it has been historically somewhere between 8 to 10 years. So it could be from 1 to 12 years. And it varies greatly over time. So there is no specific repetitive time periods for this. Now, this is what it looks like. As you can see, peak, recession, trough, extension, expansion to peak, recession, trough, and then it goes on. So these are the four parts of the business cycle. When you say expansion, that's growth of economic activity, as you can see here. Rising wages, prices and employment levels. At this point, when you reach the peak, the growth rate peaks. Economy reaches productive capacity. And then it starts contracting. This phase, economic activity slows, employment drops, overall production declines, and then you reach the lowest ebb called trough. Negative trend levels off, and then from this point onward recovery begins. Your next LOS says describe how resource use, housing sector activity and external trade sector activity vary as an economy moves through the business cycle. First, expansion. Well, an expansion phase of business cycle, employment picks up as production increases, wage and employment growth increases, consumer spending, low interest rates encourage business investment and allow financing for large purchasing like houses. So this is what happens in expansion. What about peak? At peak, economic growth rate flattens out. The economy is at maximum employment level. So at this point, inflation concerns cause the consumption rate to be slow. Moving on to the next phase, contraction. At this phase in business cycle, purchasing starts to slow. Inventories build up quickly as the demand falls. So the companies cut back on hours and lay off workers. Increasing unemployment further decreases consumer spending. And at this lowest point, trough, lowest level of economic growth, basically contracted economy, high unemployment and low level of business spending, of course low spending on housing, and as an expansionary monetary policy would encourage new investment. Okay, now there are some theories that explain why business cycles occur. Several conflicting theories of how business cycles work and how government intervention affects them. First, models with money. This model explains steady growth in the money supply. Poor monetary policy can skew aggregate demand and influence the business cycle. So this model believes that inflation is the result of business cycle and monetary policy necessary to counteract the impact of inflation on spending. So this believes that the monetary policy is the tool to rectify the business or to control the business cycle. Then we have another conflicting model, neoclassical school. Under this approach, it is assumed that economic growth is based on the rational expectation of economic agents. Efficient decision making at the micro level leads to macroeconomic growth. So basically government interventions are not effective. So in this case, monetary policy not needed for economic growth. Then we have two more models, the neoclassical or Austrian school, self-correcting economy. Under this model, it is assumed that free markets will reach equilibrium without the need for government interference or government intervention. Let the market do its own course and let's do it correct itself. So forces of supply and demand will moderate large swings in the business cycle. Then the Keynesian model, economy incapable of self-correction, means intervention is needed. So it assumes that market forces are not enough to combat large economic swings. Right? So some intervention is needed. Right? Spending is necessary to keep economy growing. So government spending during recession is needed to offset loss of private sector spending. That's what we witnessed some years ago in the US, quantitative easing. So this would mean that it will likely result in large deficits because the government will intervene to rectify the business cycle, and then this would result in large government spending. Okay, next LOS says describe types of unemployment and compare measures of unemployment. Unemployment is basically a situation when someone is willing and capable to work but is unable to find the job. So there are primarily three types of unemployment. First, structural, means when the economy changes its structure. It's a very serious one. No longer demand for a specific type of workers like telegram operators history. No such job for such workers. Frictional unemployment, workers changing job from job A to job B or transitioning from one to another. So the time lag between leaving a job and finding a new one, for that time you are jobless. So that is what's called frictional unemployment. Matches between based on location or skill maybe, so it takes time to find the new job. So that time lag is frictional unemployment. Cyclical, and of course clearly is based upon the business cycle. When the business cycle is in trough, many people will be unemployed, and in the peak most of them will be employed. Right. Then how can we measure unemployment? Unemployment rate can be calculated this way: percentage of people in labor force that want to work but can't find one. Right? Let's say 10,000 workers are in our labor force. They want to do a job but they can't find one, divided by the total workforce. This will give you the unemployment rate. Then payroll employment. Well, it monitors changes in total payroll growth or shrinking over time. So this is another measure or tool we use to measure unemployment. Then next, LOS, explain hyperinflation, disinflation and deflation. Before that, we need to define inflation. It's a persistent increase in price level of goods and services over time. And what causes inflation? Increase in price level. Increasing money supply during slow economic growth. So when money supply increased, more people will rush to purchase goods, so the demand for goods and services will go up, the prices will be pushed upward. Injecting large amounts of money in the economy, and that's what result in increase in aggregate demand. And there are certain advantages and disadvantages to inflation. Advantage of inflation: it will reduce the amount of debt. Like I have borrowed $10,000, and due to inflation, the value of money has decreased. So when I pay off this $10,000, it wouldn't be as heavy on me as it was if there was no inflation. Wage adjustments: you pay high real wage, maybe increase unemployment levels as well, but there are more disadvantages to inflation than advantages. So disadvantages like increase the opportunity cost of holding money. Like when the money loses its value, you hold money, the value of the money will fall, so you lose. Discourage saving and investment. So when the money is losing its value, it will discourage investments, it will discourage saving as well. Then the next type, hyperinflation. When we say hyperinflation, it's the extreme case of inflation, the increase in the price level 100%. What are the causes? Imbalance between supply and demand for money, or excess printing of currency, or perhaps like in 1930s or like in early 1940s in Germany, lost confidence in country's currency. What would the effect? The public transfers wealth to the government. People buy items that they can keep in their pockets, and the money is to be carried on wheelbarrows. So that's too much money chases too few goods. Hyperinflation. Then deflation and disinflation. Let us discuss in the next slide. Deflation basically is the decrease in price level when the money supply is reduced. Right? So remember, deflation is negative inflation, that is reduction in price level. Compare this with the disinflation. Disinflation is the reduction in the inflation rate. Like inflation rate previously was maybe 10%, now it has fallen to 3%. This is disinflation. But here you have negative inflation, that the prices are falling. Here the rate of growth of prices is reduced, but here the prices are actually falling. So decrease in price level when the money supply is reduced causes reduced money supply or increased economic productivity grows supply of goods, more goods than people can purchase. Affects, discourages expenditures and investment. When the firms see that the prices are falling, they don't invest. Decrease aggregate demand. Disinflation, as I said, is the reduction in the inflation rate. Prices still increasing but at a lower rate. So deflation would be an inflation rate of -2%, while disinflation would be a changing inflation from 9 to 8%. That is decrease in the growth of inflation rate. So that is disinflation. Next, how we measure inflation. Next, LOS is explain the construction of indices used to measure inflation. A price index is used to track price level changes over time. Most indices use the Lespier method we'll discuss. There are 3 steps to creating a price index. First, identify the kind of index you want to conduct, yearly, monthly or weekly. Identify basket of goods and services to include in the computation of inflation. Calculate the general price level of the previous and the current period. And then the price index, then after these steps, the price index for the base year is set to 100, and we'll do this in the next slide. Calculate the price index for country. Let's move on directly to the next slide. Here is a part of price index for American households. So what is the inflation rate for 2018? So what we're going to do, we're going to first see what is the overall general price level. 52 times 2.59 plus 36 times 0.89 gives you $166.72. So take this as a base of 100. What happened next year? 51 times 2.62 plus 38 times 0.85 gives you 165.92. Now what happened over the period? Expenditure in 2017 was 166.72, and now it has risen up to, or it has gone down to 165.92. Right, now if this is my base year, so it's going to be then 165.92 based upon the base year times 100 gives me 99.52. So the items that cost me 100 now cost me 99.52. So the difference between these is 0.48% negative. Your next LOS, compare inflation measures including their uses and limitations. Consumer price index. Basically it looks at basket of goods and tracks their purchase price over time. It uses a fixed basket of goods and services such as the Lespier's index. It has certain limitations, which it's biased against new products. New products when added will change the composition of the index. It's biased against increasing quality of goods over time, and biased against substitution effect for goods that are not in the basket. So the Fisher index was created to correct these limitations. Then we have the producer price index. It includes products at all stages of production process. Now we have 2 types of inflation, the cost push inflation and the demand pull. As the name suggests, the cost push inflation, the increase in price level caused by the increasing in cost of production, is called cost push inflation. So inflation resulting when the cost of production, wages and raw materials, and therefore reduces aggregate supply. So increases production cost, flows through the higher cost, and these higher cost means the prices will go up. So increased prices could be from increasing wages or higher price of inputs or whatever. So the price increase caused by the increase in cost is called the cost push inflation. On the other side, demand pull inflation means when the demand for certain goods and services increase. Because of their increased demand, there are limited supply of those goods and services. Few could be catered to, So that would increase the price of those goods and services. So inflation results when aggregate demand outpaces the aggregate supply. Ability to increase supply is limited in the short term. So this is too much money chasing too few goods. So this supply shortfall leads to price increases. That's what you call the demand pull inflation. Next, LOS interpret a set of economic indicators and describe their uses and limitations. Some economic indicators. Economic indicators give information about conditions of the economy and are used for determining the current state and trends of the economic cycle. There are some leading indicators, lagging and coincident indicators. Leading indicators intend to predict the future movement of the economy. Like share prices will indicate how the economy is going to turn out. Price of the consumer durables and the net business formations. New orders for capital goods. So these are the leading indicators. They will warn us beforehand that how the future movement of economy is perceived. Lagging indicators only change when the economy has actually started following a certain pattern. Unemployment will be because once the economy is in downturn. Interest rate down and up, corporate profits and CPIs. These are lagging. And then coincident indicators, they exist during specific economic activity like GDP in a particular time period, retail sales, industrial production, and employment. So leading predict the future movement. Lagging, they only change when economy has started following the actual pattern, and coincident that exists during a specific economic activity. So what are the uses of economic indicators? They have unique schedule for release so investors can prepare for them. They indicate the direction of economy so we can take our positions accordingly. So analysts use them to predict the possible future investments, should or should they not. And there are of course certain limitations to economic indicators. Their interpretation could be tricky, yes. Misleading. Data on which we have drawn up these indicators could be inaccurate, and since it's estimated, so it could go wrong as well. And measuring GDP is practically impossible because huge data is required to measure up GDP. So that completes your reading, Understanding Business Cycle.